These are the top 10 corners in the 2024 NFL Draft. What is going on? It is Alex coming back at you with another video, and today we are going to be breaking down one of my favorite positions to grade. Y'all know how excited I get about some of these players. Y'all know me about Sauce. You know me about JPJ. And this year, we got a bit of excitement as well. This class, initially, when I was looking at it on paper, not necessarily the most exciting, but the more I dug into the tape, we have some really good players to break down. So stay tuned. It's going to be a great year. Feel free to stick around, like, comment, subscribe. You guys know what to do. We're going to be going and pushing for that 9K. We just breached 8K not too long ago. Once everything gets back and going, going to be great. Did just start up a brand new show with Broshma where we are actually doing a top 5 battle between these cornerbacks. That's going to be posted on Sunday. So I'm probably going to be posting this for Saturday. Be able to give you guys a little bit of a sneak peek into what I have in terms of my rankings, but this is super awesome. I'm very excited about it. And, you know, you guys can always check that channel out as well. Broshman and I are going to be 50-50 partners of it until the end of time. And it's going to be great. It's going to add to the regimen. So a lot of the stuff that we could do on our shows that might ruin the algorithm or momentum, we're going to be doing over there. And it's going to be super awesome because it's stuff we always want to give to you guys. But of course, there's so many other things that we have to give. So let's get right into this. I know I'm the one who's overselling it. Broshmo isn't, but to be fair, I'm the smaller fish in that big pond. Let's get right into this, starting off with my number 1 overall corner. That's Kool-Aid McKinstry. I'm going to stress this right now. I would be waiting towards the latter half to be able to understand some of these a little more nuanced guys because there's going to be a lot of the same top 5, top 10 type of guys, but they're in different orders for sure. And those guys in that bottom half, there are some dudes who people have as number 2, for example, and definitely is going to be that bigger talking point. You guys know how much of a pain in the ass I am when it comes to grading. You guys know I don't give out 80 pluses. That's just not me. I hate giving those out. That's my blue chip grade. Kool-Aid McKinstry earned it. The more I watch him, the more I fall in love. And he is a god tier coverage corner, regardless of whether you look at zone or man. I think he's one of the best man corners that I've ever seen. And he's just super fluid with everything. You know, there's not really much I can nitpick on him. He's not going to be a Kalen King, who we'll talk about soon in terms of blowing up a bunch of plays behind the line of scrimmage. But, you know, whatever. I mean, if you see me put a not 4.3 into an evaluation, that's a pretty good sign that I love the player that much to where I'm like, dude, I have no idea what the hell I'm going to be putting as a negative. He had 16 pass breakups last year, but only 1 interception. So hopefully we can turn some of those to interceptions, but the thing that's translatable to the NFL are those pass breakups, not the interceptions. Interceptions are opportunities from pass breakups. So I think that Kool-Aid McKinstry, absolutely awesome. I say Stephon Gilmore. I mean, there's so many guys you can comp him to. You know, he is going to be, in my opinion, a top 10 corner in the NFL. I'd probably take him top 5 right now. You know, he really is that special. I think he does take that creme de la creme top spot in this draft. And I mean, I think that there's just not many corners that you get to see that are this well balanced. And he doesn't even have issues when it comes to grabbing. He's very nuanced with it. Broshma and I will be talking about it tomorrow after you guys see this video. But he does tend to grab when there's a step on him. But I like to bring up the fact that in college, it's rewarded to grab if somebody gets past you because it's a 15-yard penalty and not a spot foul. So I think that's honestly really smart. Nick Saban does teach you guys to do that as well. So I think this guy might end up continuing to raise up. And I would not be too surprised to see him near where I ended up with Sauce Gardner, especially if he ends up into that 4.4 territory, that lower 4.4 on his 40-yard dash. I think he's absolutely incredible. Teams that I would love for him to go to, you know, Cardinals, they're still looking for a boundary corner number 1. Been looking for it for a hot minute. Colts, obviously, y'all are kind of in disarray. You guys got a pretty solid one in round 2 last year or this past year, but I'm not really fully sold on Julius Brents being a true corner 1, especially for the foreseeable future. I think that getting a guy like Kool-Aid McKinstry to solve that problem would be great. Then you also have the Detroit Lions, who still do not have a true corner number 1, Emmanuel Mosley, up for a contract after they brought him on for a 1-year deal. Cam Sutton there for a couple more years would be a very good mentor for Kool-Aid McKinstry. And then you have Chauncey potentially going to resign, but you also have Brian Branch, who's a former teammate of Kool-Aid McKinstry. It's just a great spot for him to go. Do I think the Lions will be in that range? No. but you never know what happens. Injuries happen all the time. These are dream fits. Sometimes I like to put a couple teams that are more likely and then one team that is kind of more of a wish and a prayer. Next, we got Kalen King. I've talked a lot of shit on Kalen King, and, I'm going to own up for it. I'll take it on the chin right now. When you watch players that you fall in love with that are number 2 on your board, naturally players are going to look worse, but also you're so enamored with one star and Joey Porter Jr. that, when you get to see Kalen King pop up, it's usually because they're targeting him because he slipped up in coverage. The more I watched him, this guy's spectacular. I mean, I have to own up to it. He's a really damn good player. He really does remind me in terms of that physicality and just the ability to stick to someone's hip of Jalen Ramsey. Obviously 2 inches and 10 or 20 pounds lighter. So that's why I'm saying mini Jalen Ramsey, not like he's a, younger version of Jalen Ramsey. I'm saying he's like literally, you take the corner, you just drag it in a little bit, you get Kalen King. I think he's absolutely awesome. And I know I'm probably the biggest fan of him. For some reason, these Penn State corners, Penn State in general, y'all know how much I love it. I have one jersey that I've gotten in the past like 5 to 10 years, and it's a Penn State Micah Parsons jersey. I go to SMU. I have no reason to have that. But you know what? I don't know why. I love Penn State with all my heart. They just, for some reason, have these players that I absolutely adore. It is what it is. And especially their defense, I think they're absolutely awesome. And I think Kalen King is going to continue that trend for sure. Just that field awareness. On the first rep, I saw him go to a deep third in the middle and then recognize that his teammates screwed up. And he ended up going back around. Catch was still made, but he was the reason why it wasn't a touchdown off the bat. So, just somebody who really does feel the field very well. My only issue is during some run plays, even though he's a monster and will blow up a lot of them, he sometimes goes to the wrong spot. He does get lost here and there. Again, it's a big nitpick, but it did happen 2 or 3 times to where I was like, oh man, be a little bit more patient. It wasn't him just sealing the edge. It was just an actual mess up. But, he's probably going to be in that 4.45 to 4.5 range. Not necessarily going to be the fastest guy on planet Earth, but I think that he could be truly spectacular. Cardinals already mentioned them. Obviously, Jalen Ramsey was formerly of the Rams. So I think that, especially with their need for corners, they could definitely take advantage of that. But also the Steelers, who wouldn't love to see JPJ and Kalen King back together? A Steelers fan. So I gotta put that out there. That's my little wishful thinking right there. I love Kalen King to death. I think that he'll end up going top 20 because I think his play speaks for itself. But that 4.45 to 4.5 range might just push him down below some of these guys who might run a little bit faster, or it might just be like, we're not necessarily fully ready to embrace this guy with open arms if, he might have a little bit of physical limitations. He's not like he's 6'3" having a 4.45. It's 5'11". So, here I am nitpicking, but, it is what it is. You guys see the grade right there. Still spectacular. I believe that might have been higher than everybody not named Joey Porter Jr. last year. So, again, spectacular. Denzel Burke is next. This is another player where he had a fall off last year, but I really wanted to emphasize towards the end of the year, especially that Georgia game. I thought he bounced back incredibly well. I think he's still refining his game for sure, but he's had his shoulder injury in high school. This past off season, also he had that hand injury. I believe it's like a thumb or something, and he never fully bounced back from it. Of course, when you're nursing injuries, you're probably not going to be fully focused on the game. Is that an excuse? No, but it is sometimes a reason to understand that, well, maybe their play dropped off for that reason. And what I'd love to see is that he started climbing back up the ladder towards the end of the year. Did a very good job versus Georgia. To me, that's a big litmus test to see how he can perform. But he's very, very athletic. He's super fluid all around. I really love him to death. And again, he has already had some proven success. It's much different than Derek Stingley's fall off. This guy ended up falling off not too much, and it was because of injury. So I do think that Denzel Burke is an incredibly talented player. A little bit cheap there calling him Marshawn Lattimore, but, he does very much remind me of him in terms of that fluidity, that balance, and just overall that length. 6'1", 190 is an incredible build. I'd prefer it to be 195, 200, but, that's something that you could literally do in one offseason in the NFL with the right trainers and the right regimen. Looking at teams that could use him, I would love for him to be a number 2. Well, where Jeff Okudah is actually right now. at the Falcons and being able to train up with AJ Terrell. The Raiders always need help. And then the Vikings, I'm still looking for them to have a true corner number one. I was not a huge fan of not AJ Terrell. What's his name? I'm tripping. But the other Clemson corner that you guys got, Andrew Booth. And, I think Andrew Booth's a solid corner, but I don't think he's a true corner one. I think Denzel Burke would be a guy who could actually step into that role, especially if he stays healthy. But still, I think that, these teams, there's a lot of teams that could use a corner. So that's just 3 of very many teams that could use him. Next, we got Dwight McGlothern. So, yes, it's an N stuck behind my head, but it's an N. Dwight McGlothern. Try to say that 3 times fast. But he's 6'2", 190. He's a really good player. Another pass breakup machine. In my first line of notes on my scouting report, in my summary, I said this guy could be a top 10 corner in the NFL if he only plays off man. His instincts in off man are incredible. His reaction time's incredible. His get off's incredible. He just is not very fast. I see him get toasted quite a bit, and it does happen a little bit more than not. He over pursues at times because I think he's a little bit afraid of getting beat deep. I gotta admit it. Broshmo was the one who called me up and was like, dude, this guy is awesome. Like, I said, who the fuck is Dwight McGlothern? He's actually really damn good. So gotta tip my cap to Broshmo right there. But he is a very physical player. When he is an off man, I don't think there's a better corner that I have studied. Maybe Sauce Gardner, but the NFL doesn't only have off man coverage, and I think that teams would start trying to take advantage of that. Still an amazing player, but I think he is more scheme specific than anything. I'd be a little bit worried about that. And he does doubt himself in terms of what he can do in terms of his speed. And I think that does sometimes lean to him ending up getting burnt and toasted a little bit. And that's a bit of an issue because sometimes he'll over pursue and then he'll bite really hard because he thinks that he got beat on a double move and, guy's gone 20 yards down the field. But I think that in time, he's going to continue getting more and more comfortable. I think with the right coaching, with the right system, he'll be perfectly fine. Still already talked about the Cardinals as well as the Vikings in terms of their need. But, the Ravens, I could always see them maxing the value of a corner. They seem to totally understand how to truly make a corner work as well as possible. They play to their strengths. I really love that. Regardless of who the DC's there, Harbaugh always knows how to work his DBs, and big respect for that. But I think Dwight, when all is said and done, especially if he's going to be able to focus on his man coverage ability with a guy like Marlon Humphrey as a mentor, it's going to be God tier. But I don't think he's going to test well. I highly doubt that he's going to be taken in the first round, but he could end up being a second round player just based on his play alone. He's a really, really talented player, and I've seen some of those reps where he does look like a top 10 player in the class, but consistency is key, especially at that position. So we're going to give him a top 64 grade, and that's pretty damn generous. I don't know. Most of these players are not going to have comparisons because until I truly feel comfortable, I'm not going to BS one. Something didn't stick out to me. So until then, we'll see what happens. Next, we got Jason Marshall Jr., the big behemoth out of Florida. 6'1", damn near 200 pounds. Excellent frame. Him, KOOL-AID, McKinstry, both have excellent frames. I think overall, solid athlete. I think that on those hard cuts, he does have a hard time. Especially on a comeback route or a curl, you see him drifting really far away because he has a hard time shifting directions. But it's weird. He's kind of inconsistent because he's very good, especially on 45-degree cuts. You talk about post, you talk about a corner. There was a post corner route actually that he covered perfectly. He does have change of direction ability very well, and he can do it very well, but it's just more so inconsistent on those sharper, harder cuts, and that will get the best of you in the NFL. It will, but I think that's something that could be worked on. I think that maybe it is his positioning overall. He relies a lot on his physicality to a detriment to the point where he's getting somebody who's a hand technician can totally release off him very easily. I saw it happen with Brew McCoy quite a few times. And Brew McCoy's not even necessarily that good. He's just definitely good enough in terms of his finesse to be able to get around a guy who is blatantly relying on his physicality. And he doesn't need to. That's the thing. He's a solid enough athlete overall. I just think he's a little insecure. I think he needs a little bit more time and a little bit more polish. But when he gets that, I think it's going to be perfectly fine. But again, he has a great frame. He's overall a very good corner. I think he's comfortable in zone coverage as well, which I do like. And he does have that ability to use the press. It's just he becomes a little too reliant on it. And, looking at some teams that could use him, again, having a good mentor is key for me. The only one that's up in the air is that Lions suggestion. That's just because I think the Lions really need a corner one for the long run, and I'm kind of praying that Cam Sutton can step in that mentor role. But Marlon Humphrey, AJ Terrell, you can't really get much better than that. Next, we got Kamari Lassiter. I love Kamari. He's a little bit thin there at 180 pounds, but this dude is lightning in a bottle. He has the best graded movement skill of the class in both change of direction as well as overall speed. He's probably the highest overall speed I've ever given a corner off the bat. I think he might be testing in the 4.3s. He might even hit 4.2. I do not see this guy getting burned ever, and I highly doubt that he ever will. He changes direction very well. I think he needs to get more comfortable. He's only played 1 year after all, and that's why he looks a little bit stiff out there on the field, and he causes some big whiffs here and there. Like, he's mentally stiff. His body, when you see him change directions, it's super fluid, but you can tell the processing just isn't up to speed yet. So that's why there's a lot of big whiffs where you'll see a guy make a double move, he'll bite on it hard. He reminds me a lot of maybe Marcus Peters, Dante Jackson, these guys who can really use their speed to their advantage, but they're also ballsy as hell. I think that with refinement, he could get to that Marcus Peters territory and maybe even get a little bit better, but I'm holding back my excitement on it. Just overall, this guy, if I have 2 years of job security, I'm taking this guy in a heartbeat. I would probably take him at the end of the first round, and I think that's where he'll end up going. Again, I'm going to teams that have a really good mentorship or a team that probably is going to bring in a new regime, and that's the Raiders. So they do have that timeline there. Also a team that's looking at bringing in Marcus Peters. So it might be a pretty damn good mentor for a guy who I think could end up being on that tier. I'm just talking about Dante Jackson because he is also a similar build plus that speed combo. But overall, I mean, Kamari Lassiter, you look at him as a player and you're like, he's all right. But when you see what he could be, my God, he doesn't lack the skill, or he doesn't lack the abilities that you're looking for in a longer term guy. He doesn't have, for example, for tackles, for me, what's a big thing is anchor. Can you handle power? A lot of people love particularly a guy who most people have as their number 2 tackle in the class, and they think that he has so many traits that's going to be incredible. I think he has a crap anchor. I'm necessarily not nearly as high on him as many people. I get a lot of shit for it, but the tools that some people project for the future, I project some different tools. Am I right? We'll see in 5 years' time. But I'm going to be pretty damn confident that if you can't hold up to power, you're not going to be able to do that. I think for a corner, if you're not able to have fluidity of your hips and you're not able to keep up with the receiver, that's going to be a bigger issue than you're processing this early in your career. It's 1 year in. I think that with more experience and more refinement, he's going to end up being an absolute baller, could end up being a top 15 pick. Next, we got Josh Newton. I'm a bit higher on Josh Newton than most people. I think he's really damn solid. He's a little bit on the older side, if I'm not mistaken. I think he is going to be 24, starting out his rookie year. But, he's somebody who might not be the best athlete in the world. He has some good change of direction skill, but I do see him getting burnt on the inside a bit. And when he shades to the outside, he ends up over-relying on grabbing in order to remain relevant. To me, that's really scary. But when you see him lined up to the inside, he uses the boundary of the field very, very well. I love being able to see a player who can have that boundary and have the sideline being an asset. And he does that. He's able to push the receiver to the boundary. He has the physicality, 6 foot, 195, incredible build. And overall, he's actually a really good technician overall. And I think he's somebody who I would personally love to have on my team. I'm looking at teams that could use some depth players. I mean, I'm throwing out the Steelers in there because, again, we are probably going to be losing Pat Pete after a year or 2 or 3. And this is a good guy to just have around. He's physical. He is smart. He's going to be a day one impact. And, I mean, the Bears were just thrown in there because I think, never can have too many DBs. I think you can even use this guy as a safety if you need to. Very smart player. But, I just don't think that you're going to be putting your cards down and saying, hey, I want you to take on a running back one-on-one. I want you to go and, pretty much cover the outside of the field with an outside shade when you have Tyreek Hill on the inside. There's just certain roles he's not going to play. But I think as a day 3 corner, you can't get very much better than this guy. He is really polished and he has a great frame. I think he'll end up running probably in the 4.48 to 4.55 range. And I think that is perfectly fine. I think he can serve a job well, and I think he's going to be a good player. Next, we got Cooper DeJean. This is the one I'm talking about. People love themselves some Cooper DeJean. I like him too. I just think he's going to be a safety in the NFL. I think he's extremely stiff, awful change of direction skills in a, multi-directional realm. He is fast as fuck. He is a straight line freight train. I think that, I'm thinking of guys like Steve Atwater when I'm thinking of what this guy could be. Now, you put on maybe 10, 15 pounds on this dude, you stick him as a strong safety, and you have him go like a missile towards the line of scrimmage, my God, you might get another Cam Chancellor. So I think this guy could be an absolute game changer. Don't get me wrong there. I think as a pure cornerback, he doesn't have the coverage ability I want. He has great ball skills. He has great return skills. He has unbelievable size, especially for the fact that he's the second fastest corner I have graded. He is incredible. He is a multi-sport athlete. His whole entire family is a ton of athletes. This guy's going to be a beast, but I just don't think it's going to be at the cornerback position. That could push him down because we have a god-tier stacked safety class. But I do think a team, maybe like the Niners, that would love to play with that. John Lynch, obviously a former safety, might love to play with that. Packers might be looking for a safety, could always use some extra help in that DB room, could always be down for that. The Colts, they need everything in terms of DBs at this moment. They could be totally down for that. There's just so many roles this guy could fit. I just don't trust it to be a boundary corner in the NFL. There's just too many route technicians that can take advantage of the fact that this guy is going to be misplaced. He's going to be a monster. He's going to test out of his mind, but I just think that on the field, he belongs as a safety, and I would be willing to put him top 20 on my board. If he says, screw it, I'm going to safety, I'm going to be the baddest mofo in this building. I have great size, great hands, and a monster hit stick. I'm very excited to see what Cooper DeJean is going to do in the NFL, and I'm praying to God that he's open to a safety/corner hybrid at the very minimum. Next, we got FENTRELL CYPRUS. He's somebody who's kind of Cooper DeJean, but without all the actual bells and whistles that you'd want with someone like Cooper DeJean. He still has that stiffness to him. Not great in terms of change of direction. You lose the size. You lose an inch of height, and you lose 30 pounds. Yikes. It's actually 25 pounds. But regardless, I was very surprised. I like FENTRELL CYPRUS. I think he's an overall solid enough athlete. I don't think that he's anything special, but I think that when you're at 180 pounds, you need to be a better athlete. He doesn't have that. That's a big issue of mine. He's not necessarily a big asset in terms of being a lockdown corner because he's not fluid at 180 pounds. Big issue with that. Do I think Florida State could change that? For sure. Hence why I still have him here. He's still going to be an asset in the run game. Do I think he could be a safety or slot convert? Absolutely. He's physical, and he's actually really good versus the run, and he's eager to get involved. I love seeing corners that are eager to get involved. Always got to give them some props there. Even guys who didn't make the list like DJ James are willing to go and put their head into the sand and being willing to, take some hits for him. I know head in the sand is not the correct term, but regardless, I think a team that might want a safety, I know Alohi Gilman, a lot of people love that guy, but for the Chargers, could end up being a free safety convert right there. You could end up seeing him go into the slot. The Rams always need corners, and then, to be honest, Byron Murphy's gone, so you always see him going there and trying to replace him there in Arizona. There's a lot of places where this guy can go, and I think that his NFL career certainly could still have a very positive trajectory. It's just much lower in probability because of that size. So next, and finally, we have Nate Wiggins, somebody who I actually, on the video that's dropping tomorrow, had a lot of really positive things to say about. I personally said I am not going to be grading this guy because I think he's going to come out in the 2025 class. I decided to say, screw it. I'm going to look at him anyways, and I'll tell you guys my thoughts here. You guys see the grade. I mean, it's still pretty nice. You look at it right here, and, you're pretty much 0.25 off from being even a spot higher. I think that he should wait an extra year. I'm going to stick by that stance after evaluating him. I think there's an issue with his motor. I'm genuinely concerned about it. I see him running a 4.6 on a lot of plays. But then when he really needs to, I'm seeing him run a 4-4. I have a big issue with corners who take plays off. That's just my thing. And I stuck my neck out for this guy. He kind of felt like the opposite of Kalen King. He ended up popping when I started seeing him be the focus of the camera when I'm watching other players. He ended up making big plays. And he is a ball hawk. He is awesome. I think he's a really good zone coverage corner, and I think he's going to have a very good role in the NFL. But I really want to see him get over that motor hump. And I think if he does that, he's going to be a top 10 player in the 2025 class. And I say that, obviously, I'm throwing that number out there, maybe top 20. There's a lot of really good players that will be coming out every single year. But when I see this guy, he doesn't seem super eager for contact. I don't think he's going to be very good in the run support game. I think that overall, he was one of the weaker corners that I saw. I didn't really see very much of an effect on any corner and any wide receivers. And I purposely did not evaluate his physicality versus Johnny Wilson because that's a damn tight end. And you weigh 185. The dude damn near weighs 100 pounds more than you, right? So I'm not going to factor that in. But he was getting kind of moved around by the smaller wide receivers. For me, I need to see a little bit more oomph, a little bit more spiciness, a little bit more salsa up in there. And I didn't see that. So, of course, nothing is written in stone. I think this guy could totally vault up boards and end up being a day one pick. But as of the tape that I saw, I am genuinely concerned. I would hope for a guy like Tyson Campbell, who I fell in love with, could end up kind of working and tweaking with this guy and seeing if maybe you could boost his man coverage ability and his physicality. That's why I wanted to toss those Jags in there, because I also love me some Jaguars. But I think this guy could end up being the real deal. Definitely. I just think that there's a major hump that I want to get over before I really stick my neck out for this guy again. So that is going to be the video. You guys get all 10 broken down in depth, but you get to see the top 5 battle coming out tomorrow for you guys. So I hope you guys do enjoy that. Thank you so much for watching and always supporting my show. You guys have honestly made all this worth it. For you guys who are new to YouTube or even have a YouTube of your own, we don't really get paid for this, but we do it out of the kindness of our heart because we do want this to end up growing and being our full-time thing. And you guys make it worth it. It's less about the dollar amount, more about those comments from guys like Worthless who come in and say stuff that's super uplifting. So I appreciate you guys for that. Probably the 3 of you that are still watching. You guys are awesome. Thank you for being loyal fans because it does make a big difference whether you see it or not. See you guys on the far side. Peace.